Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me again for another live reading of Sojourner's Path. Last week, the live reading got killed. So I don't know what happened there, but it was not fun. Anyway, this week, I'm doing my final chapter of live reading. I hope you guys have been enjoying. If you want to, go back and listen to the other chapters. Today, we're going to have, let's see, what has happened for Allie so far? She's had some bad nightmares. We got a little insight into her life with Ty and his family, and her church life, and her and her work life, and she was asked to do something weird by her boss, which now she's upset at. And in the last chapter, we were like learning about how she got upset because her boss asked her to do this thing, and she had to go into the office after hours, and now she's in trouble maybe with the bigger boss, and that's frustrating. So now we're going to go to chapter 5 and some really interesting stuff. This is a very pivotal chapter in the book, so I hope you guys enjoy. And if you're interested in hearing or reading more, you can find the 9 chapters for free on my website. All you have to do is just go there, and it's under the books part of the website. Just click on books, not on Sojourner's Path, which is underneath that. Just click on books and it'll take you right there. So, all right, let's take a look-see. Chapter 5. Allie snuck in the door after the service began and quickly took a back row seat. She felt uneasy. The congregation was in the midst of a hymn, so most were preoccupied with the task of praise, except a short man who turned to see her entrance. In a small church, gossip is like a field of dandelions. One good puff and the seeds go everywhere. She imagined the man nudging his neighbor, whispers spreading down the aisles, and soon the whole church erupting with wagging tongues at her expense. After a moment, she realized how irrationality was plaguing her. Why was she freaking out about this? Allie adjusted herself in the pew and shrugged it off as an anxiety. There was a possibility of blowback from the congregation, but she had a right to come to church, screw up or not. Allie picked up a hymnal and tried to find the song they were engaged in, quickly thumbing through the pages until she found it. Although I speak with angels' tongues, verse 3 began, and she sung with the congregation. For now we peer at darkened glass. Our visions end, our tongues all cease. In part we know, in part now we see. She glanced up briefly as she sung. Why she looked up she couldn't say, but in the moment saw the little man turn, look at her again, and then back around. The pit of her stomach started churning. By the time she came back to herself, they were already singing the next hymn, 424. She quickly caught up to the congregation's singing. Bright seraphims, cherubims, and thrones, raise the glad strain, Alleluia. Cry out dominions, princedoms, powers. And again he smiled at her. What is his problem? By all accounts, he looked like a normal guy, but the way he looked at her, Allie's heart thundered in her chest. Her anxiety grew. When he wasn't looking, she reached around and scratched her back as sweat began to make her clothes feel sticky and uncomfortable. She didn't want him to see she was visibly shaken by his continued rubbernecking. It had to stop. Allie scooted to the left in the pew, hiding behind another parishioner. That was better. At least she didn't have to worry about the man anymore. If she couldn't see him, he couldn't see her. At the end of the song, the pastor stood and gave announcements. There was a donation for building a well in Africa, a new baby born, and then prayers for those suffering from illness or strife. Promptly after this, there was a passing of the peace. Oh, crap, she thought. Now it was certain people would remember her foibles, calling them out about saying I love you as easily as they passed out candy in children's church. Though it was a very accurate simile, it didn't win any friends, and surely would come back to haunt her in this moment. She thought about skulking out the door quickly, but before she could, there was the first person saying, Peace be with you, looking in her eyes and stretching out their hand to shake hers. Her mouth fell agape for a moment until she remembered herself and quickly took their hand. Peace to you. She turned to find another person was on her other side. Good morning, they beamed. Good morning, God's peace, she sheepishly replied. This isn't so bad. So far, it seemed people were either letting it go or had forgotten. She relaxed, began shaking people's hands, and reciprocating more confidently. She walked around, as others did, sharing their community and welcoming one another. This was the best outcome she could have hoped for. She could see herself returning next week and enjoying the next social event coming up in the calendar. Perhaps she'd begin giving her time to the nursery or handing out the sacraments. Maybe she was wrong about these people. They weren't holding anything against her. They were giving her a welcome place, and she was beginning to feel it. As she walked around, all she saw were smiles and hugs. I love you. The voice drawled out behind her. Her mind questioned what she heard, but her heart knew and seized. Knew who said it. Knew it was the man gawking at her. The words felt like an assault, not physical or emotional, but spiritual, as if they reached down and put a chokehold on her soul. Allie bolted for the door. Allie arrived in Ty's driveway minutes after leaving church. Her car lurched as she slammed on the brakes in the driveway, thrust the automatic shifter into park, and wrenched the key from the ignition. With shaking hands, she lifted them in front of her as she took in her first deep, full breath. Hearing the keys jingle due to tremors, she dropped them on the seat beside her and buried her face in clammy hands. Get a hold of yourself. But she couldn't. Not yet. Her core was shaken. So this guy was testing you, so what? She tried to make sense out of his actions and her reaction. To anyone looking on, she would have seemed certifiable, ridiculous, running away like a child who'd been caught throwing rocks at stained glass windows. In her heart, she knew there was much more to it. She felt ashamed and guilty. For what, she didn't know. Logic told her it was a natural reaction to the position she'd put herself in by the challenging of the church. But she couldn't shake the overwhelming weight of something more. She could reason with her logic, consider the old adage that turnabout is fair play, and forgive the diminutive man for possible cattiness. Come back next Sunday and face the music. Yes, she'd be embarrassed, but it would be over, and she'd be ready for anyone else trying the same thing. Allie's breathing began to slow. She was able to play through future scenarios where preparedness for the parishioners would help save face. Even thought about scenes where she wasn't in church, at the grocer's, walking down the street. She planned what she would say, how she would try to show them what she'd been trying to convey. She wouldn't bash them over the head with semantics anymore. She'd attempt to live out what she was trying to tell them about Christ. What if it was just that guy, though? The people of the church seemed earnest, but it was him trying to make a point. No, not a point. Something else. What if he was trying to get her to leave? To keep her away from the church? Not just that church, but any church community. She knew there were people in the flock that were more goat than sheep, but it was hard to believe someone would be that malicious. Why? She replayed what happened, focusing on the man. The moment she walked in, when she was singing, moving out of his line of sight. The moment oh God, his voice. She blinked away tears and began to tremble again. His voice was deep and calm, but held an underlying tone that resonated within her, as if he accused her, not only of her judgment of the church, but all the wrongs she'd ever done in life, things no one knew about, things she'd long since forgotten. As she thought about it more, she realized she'd felt it before. He put her back in that place of the nightmare with 3 words. I love you. Words that should comfort, support, and strengthen left her bereft and abhorred. A knock on the driver's side window caused her to jolt back to the present moment. Ty bent over and smiled at her. Coming in or what? Allie nodded with quick jerks of the head and pasted a smile on for her brother. Try as she may, there was no hiding her heart. His casual demeanor altered in reaction to her state, and he gingerly helped her open the car door. What's wrong? Bad day? There was nothing else to say. She couldn't explain herself to him. He snaked an arm through hers for support. Coffee? Maybe some tea? The kitchen was right off the back porch. No one else seemed to be at home. Where's Tammy? Ty retrieved 2 cups and started the kettle. She took the kids shopping. Oh, what happened? This was Ty's modus operandi. She knew that what was coming. He would get the story from her or keep asking until he got some explanation. I almost gotten into an accident. It was a plausible lie. No wonder you're so shaken up. How'd that happen? Some guy pulled out in front of me on New Richmond Street. I swerved just in time. She stared at him, a telltale sign she wasn't telling the truth, but luckily he'd turned to get spoons and sugar out. Wow, glad you're okay. Did you see who it was? No. Too shaken up to, you know? She scratched her back and shifted uncomfortably in the chair. Where's everybody? Ty was fumbling around in drawers. Tammy took the kids to see a matinee, Sugar Plum Fairy, Viking Warrior, the whodunit kind of kids movie or something. And you didn't go? She winked at him when he paused to grimace at her. With indignance and posturing, Ty flounced around the kitchen. Please, I am a connoisseur of fine films and not a gawker of infantile twaddle. Yeah, I can tell by your complete collection of Sharknado over there. Exactly. The kettle started whistling. Ty raced over and grabbed the vessel off the burner. Yikes! He yelped, burning his hand and attempting to pick up the boiling tea kettle without insulation. He quickly grabbed a towel as a substitute potholder. You okay? Yeah. Ty spoke out of the corners of his mouth, his burnt fingers instinctively being suckled. Really? Okay? Fine. He shook his hand a few times, then looked at the damage. What kind of tea? What you got? Ty opened the cupboard and stood back, calling out tea names. Earl Grey, jasmine, licorice, chamomile. Gimme licorice. Licorice, warm and sweet, all by itself. That's what she needed. So this guy just pulled out in front of you? Did he see you or anything? Ty leaned over the counter, teacup pressed to his lips, sipping. Allie shrugged, pulling at the tag on her tea bag, making it bounce up and down in the water. She would have preferred using an infuser, but Tammy didn't buy loose-leaf teas. She hoped Ty had enough information to placate his curiosity. Suddenly, his expression changed. He was staring at her. Allie sat back, thinking he caught her deception. What? Why do you keep doing that? What? Scratching your back. You were doing it yesterday, too. Was not. Yes, you were. You did it Thursday night, all through breakfast Saturday, and now you're doing it again. Do you have a rash or something? Allie held her mug with both hands. She couldn't have been scratching. What is that? Ty looked horrified, pointing at her mug. Allie looked down. Blood stained the side and was smeared all over the index, middle, and ring finger of her left hand. Ty ran around the counter and pulled up the back of her shirt. Oh, my God! Allie stiffened and reached around to feel where the injury came from. Her hand came back with blood all over it. Ty was already running for the bathroom to get the first aid kit. Funny, she didn't feel any pain. Ty was frantically setting down supplies. I'm going to take a look again, okay? She was still a little dumbfounded. Okay. Carefully, Ty lifted the shirt. What he saw made him curse. He gingerly pressed against her back with a washcloth. How you doing? Doesn't hurt. Once he set it down, Allie took the washcloth next to her, looking at it. She'd hoped to wipe off her cup, but there was enough blood to saturate the cloth. Hydrogen peroxide fizzled and crackled as Ty dabbed at her injury. There are 2 lumps back here. 2 what? Allie was confused. She pushed out the stool and walked to the bathroom, taking her shirt off completely and lifting a hand mirror to see behind in the larger mirror above the sink. He was right. 2 lumps between her shoulder blades and on either side of her spine. And that is the end of chapter 5. It is an exciting chapter, I know, and I just love where we're going to be going after this. It's going to blow up. So I hope that you guys get the chance to pick up Sojourner's Path. It is only $4 online at Amazon.com, and you can get the first 9 chapters on my website. So the links are in the description. Please take the time to go and look. And I also write a blog on my website, so if you're interested in seeing what I'm writing about, that's great too. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope that it is fantastic. God bless you, and may you be blessed in all your endeavors. And yeah, thanks so much for joining me.